let's talk about what to look for in a policy. You've been proactive, you've thought through your risks and the important considerations of coverage, and are now seriously considering your own policy options. Now you're asking, so what do I look for in a policy? Let's talk about 3 specific things you'll want to evaluate: limits of liability, claims made or occurrence, and limits on legal representation. First, when evaluating a policy, take a look at the limits of liability offered. These are the highest amounts that an insurance company would pay in the event of one or more covered claims. If your limits are $1 million, $3 million, for example, it means that the company would pay on your behalf on any one claim up to $1 million. If you're subject to multiple claims, the company will cover up to a total of $3 million during the policy period, but no more than $1 million on any one claim, and no more than $3 million in total. Before choosing limits of liability, consider standard limits for facilities and physicians in your state. If you're in a state, for example, where physicians often only cover $250,000 in coverage rather than the normal $1 million per claim, then you'll want to take that into consideration. Most nurses and other healthcare professionals don't want to have higher limits than what is typical of the physicians in their area. Why? Because it could potentially result in them being targeted as the prime defendant. If there are multiple defendants and it's discovered after the claim is filed that one of the defendants has higher limits, the plaintiff's attorney may decide to make that person the focus of the case in order for the plaintiff to receive a bigger payout. Then, there is a higher likelihood that the expert testimony for the case will focus on that person's involvement to determine liability. If you work for a hospital that has a $1 million policy, but only requires the physicians to carry $250,000, depending on your situation, you may want to consider limits equal to or less than what is required of the physicians. Second, after determining the limits of liability, you'll want to decide whether a claims-made policy or an occurrence policy is right for you. In a claims-made policy, coverage is triggered if a claim is filed while the policy is in effect. In an occurrence policy, coverage is available for incidents that happen during the policy period, even if the policy is no longer active. Third, and finally, though this is not an exhaustive list, look for language regarding representation. Are you required to use an attorney appointed by the insurance company, or are you free to choose your own? And either way, look for how much the attorney fees are covered in your policy. Some policies only cover 50% or less of the attorney's hourly rate. Also, sometimes the attorney's fees are inside your limit and therefore erode your available coverage, and sometimes they're outside the limit. It'll also help you with licensing defense should you need to respond to an issue or complaint filed with your state board. And whether you have your own personal professional liability policy or not, it's a good idea to ask for a copy of your employer's policy so that you know what level of protection it affords.